Yeah, get out all the heebie-jeebies. I'm trying to think.
All right.
Do I have to pee? I think I'm good. Drinking Zip Fizz, so...
Let it motivate you.
You might be hearing the sound of me pissing into a bottle, halfway through this.
See, enjoy these last non-on-camera podcasts.
Yeah,
my friend. Jesus. And then we'll have to put that on the Patreon if you want to see Volpe piss into a bottle.
Well, I mean, I will have to reveal to the world now that I do these podcasts completely in the nude, so that's going to be interesting.
It's going to... Because I've honestly thought about transitioning to the video format, the amount of vaping, the amount of, just... I was like, oh, man, you know what I mean? I don't want to film myself the position in which I'm doing the podcast.
Oh, yeah, I'm going to need to be able to go off camera to take bong rips or whatnot. Or it's going to
be a complicated process.
Yeah, we're going to have to figure out some way to, America's Most Wanted style, block out our faces or block out certain objects, but I think we could do it. They're doing amazing things with technology these days.
Well, I have an idea, and I'll get there because it's gonna come up in one of the films that made my top 10 list. So it may be an idea.
Okay,
you know what I mean. So welcome everyone. Thank you guys so much. I don't know, but I can't count to 5, but I think this may be the 5th year we've done this.
Really?
This is the 5th year I think we've done the podcast, but I don't remember if we did a top 10 list. So this is I think the 5th year of the podcast, but I don't know if it's the 5th time we've done a top 10.
Yeah,
it's at least the 3rd or 4th.
Yeah. 5 seems high, but yeah, I would say at the very least this is our 3rd. I think it is our 4th. Yeah, I think you're correct.
Because I'm trying to remember, what year did Hustlers come out? One more time.
That would be the great year of...
was it 2018?
I think it was...
Or 19?
I think it was 9... No, it was 19 because Parasite came out that year, right?
Got it.
Yeah,
Got
that was why you're giving me so much shit.
I will give you shit for that for the remainder of time that we ever record this podcast.
I looking back on it, I should have put Parasite higher, but I still pretty much stick by what I said, and I still love Hustlers. So
yeah, we love you for it. You know what I mean? A man that would choose to have me punt. Or we had to punt, right? Didn't you pick Parasite 10?
Oh yeah, it was one of the first things.
You were 8 or 9, and I was like, we're gonna punt.
I remember you're like, oh yeah, baby, we're punting.
Oh yeah, we're punting, and then you're like, okay, number 3, Hustlers.
Yep. Oh, it wasn't that high. It was number 5 or 6 or something.
Right.
But hey man, J-Lo is pretty good in that, and it's a movie about strippers. That
is true.
But I do agree that does not look as good in retrospect. But
yeah. Well, longtime fans of the show will know that Mr. Volpe and we tend to have...
We got weird picks.
Weird picks, but less crossover too. Because this is, to be clear, this is our favorite films of the year. We're each going to have 10. We have more than 10, sometimes less than 10. You know what I mean? This is probably the worst year. I mean, I saw a guy from Deadline was writing that this was the shittiest year in movies since the mid-1980s. And I went, yeah, all right. Well, at least I'm not the only one who kind of feels like this was a horrible year. I mean, I don't know. You want to blame COVID? You want to blame...
I find that
I don't know.
Interesting because I was having... I don't want to say it was a absolutely incredibly stellar year. I would say a lot of the mainstream commercial stuff would, I'm not disagreeing that there wasn't a ton of bullshit this year, but I found, especially in the last few weeks, that there's some interesting little things out there, and I think it was also partially there was a lot of stuff that was kind of held up or held over from last year's.
When's Top Gun coming out? You know what I mean?
Jesus.
I mean,
didn't they film that 4 years ago by now?
I think Miles Teller is sitting in a bunker with a mustache on, just waiting to promote Top Gun, and just can't work until Top Gun comes out. I think he's in some weird holding cell where everyone's waiting to see how he does as Goose's grown-up child son.
Oh my God.
And then they'll let him come out of his cage and then let him work again.
Yep. Congratulations. Well, I gotta hand it to him. He keeps coming back. Yeah, but it's nice to have a Top Gun in the bank, I guess, if you come out with a string of shitty movies.
What do you think? I mean, Tom Cruise is just pacing back and forth, hands clasped behind his back, counting the days and the minutes until Top Gun can be released and just earn another $200 million.
Well, I don't know.
As a producer?
I'm real curious. Do you think his priorities are like, number one Top Gun, number two Go to the Moon, or whatever his...
I think Mission Impossible probably higher because he doesn't have to share the cut with, is it Bruckmeyer or who's the friggin'... Jerry Bruckheimer or something?
Jerry Bruckheimer? Yeah.
Yeah.
Oh, my God. Yeah. That's all cruise money, baby.
Oh, God. We got a lot of Top Gun content to discuss later on in the podcast, I'm sure. But, just so that if you're not familiar, maybe this is the first time you're joining us for one of our end of the year lists. Mr. Volpe and I, we've got 10 each. We both got, I put them in an order, 10 through 1. You know what I mean? And we're going to start at the 10s. Say, Mr. Volpe has, I picked Hustlers at 8, but he picked it at number 1. Okay, we're going to punt. Mr. Volpe will notify me that, hey, that's higher on my list. Mm-hmm. So wait until it's discussed later on where it's the highest. Whoever ranks House of Gucci, Mr. Volpe's number 1 film, right? Maybe it didn't make my list. So say I picked it 10, he picked it 1. We're going to punt it down to where we can pick at number 1 and discuss it later on. So that's how the format will work. In years past, we've had very little
crossover.
We've had very little
usually
crossover.
There's a few gems where we do, but it's kind of
Uncut Gems was one.
Oh yeah, actually, a very good point. That was actually probably our first year doing this or something like that.
Probably one of the first years. Yeah, and mercilessly ridiculed for not just crowning it as the greatest movie of all time.
Yeah.
It's one of our review, I think, where we just called it was the most disappointing movie we saw that year because we didn't think it was as good. We thought it was fine, but we didn't think it was as good as we had hoped it was going to be, and we got murdered.
Oh yeah, that I think was one of the few. I'm not saying we get a ton of love all the time, but I think that was the one of the more disliked videos. I think smash that dislike button, people.
No, well, that's what is so disappointing about the YouTube decision to remove the dislike button is that
we can't accept your hate anymore.
You can still accept it, but it's private just for us, right? And you can tell how much. Well, I guess there's no way to know. So you can go ahead and check out our Uncut Gems review and how hated it was. But also my most favorite classic piece of content we've ever produced, in which you spent 2 days in a bunker watching every Rocky film ever, right, in a row.
Oh yes.
For the first time.
Oh yes. That was
slow
descent into madness.
The amount of hatred that you received for that content, my
truly.
friend.
I was...
People are literally trying to dox you and find your house to come kill you.
And it's crazy because it's like no one watched that at first, and then I think you were...
It's one of our most popular videos.
I know, like you came back like a year later, or a year and a half later, and you're like, yeah, dude, this thing's got like a couple thousand views. And I was like, really? And then it's like, oh, wow. And then I saw the comments, I was like, oh my God. And, honestly, I don't know if it matters or not, but I understand the hate. Like, those are classic movies, and I was kind of rattling off at a bunch of dumb shit. But it was an interesting experience into the darker side of YouTube. So
absolutely, those were incredible comments. I mean, there were a point, or like every other day, there'd be like a new comment because it'd pop up in my email, right? Like, oh, your channel received a YouTube comment, whatever. We're like, oh, what we got? Oh, someone else threatening death on something. You know what I mean?
Yeah, true.
So we're still waiting for the Fast and the Furious run. It's probably maybe 2022 is the year it finally happens. You know what I mean?
Oh, man.
I'm
gonna have to be up for
lose his
what?
job.
Well, yeah, I need. That's gonna be a several day affair. I don't think I've ever binged. That's like 16 hours of binging.
That's fine, and it's great content too. Have you ever seen a Fast and the Furious film out there, people? You know exactly what I'm talking about. Imagine watching 9. What are we on, 9 or 10?
10, but isn't there the spin-off thing too? Or are we gonna have to count that?
You got to watch Hobbs and Shaw too.
Ooh, yay me! Just to clarify, people, I've only seen the first 3. So and the last time I saw one, it was like 2006.
So he doesn't mind rewatching them for your guys' enjoyment, and that content will be on its way.
Yes.
Hopefully as soon as
TBD.
possible. But TBD. Keep an eye out for that. Anyway, we will need to kidnap his mother and hold her hostage for that to happen, probably. But moving right along, sir, do you want to do the honors? Do you want to start off at number 10?
Yeah, sure. Why the hell not? And also, I just want to have a little, caveat about at the beginning of this. So I had a bunch of. I feel like I say this every year, but I had trouble deciding on a lot of stuff, and my list was ever changing, and like even now looking at it, I kind of had questions, but I think I'm fairly satisfied with this, and we'll probably have a shout out section at the end of this where
absolutely once we finish the top 10 for each of us, we're going to go into the movies, things we saw didn't quite make the list. We're going to go into the movies that we saw that absolutely hated, that we wish would just burn in the fiery hells of eternity. We'll get into all that, because there's big movies that we saw that we thought were horrible. There's big movies that we didn't see, so they didn't make the list. So we're happy to
we're giving you something different than all those other lists. It's our own flavor.
I didn't get to go to TIFF.
Exactly.
Okay.
Well, yeah.
You know what I mean?
Yeah. We didn't get to go to TIFF. We didn't get to go to, the Golden Lion Festival, or, couldn't go to any of that shit.
It was a wild year. In case you don't know, I'm in the Army, and I was gone from March until mid-September, late September. So, that's a good chunk of the year where you're not really watching movies, where you can't really make it out to the theater. You know what I mean?
Jesus, I thought I had to catch up this year, but you literally,
I really did. And the saving grace,
culture.
I think, the saving grace being that I think a lot of the top movies kind of came out when I finally got home.
True, absolutely true.
I didn't miss. I mean, Ash was you didn't miss anything. It sucked.
You missed two movies, no joke.
Exactly. So it was a wild year for everyone involved. We will keep these non-spoiler. Unless it is agreed upon prior to, and we will let you know. But yeah, most of these, we're going to put our little our beanie to the side. Let me get my hipster rims out. I don't think these are a lot of our top 10. We have a distinguishing taste. So I mean, these are not for the pedestrian.
Yes. We're gonna don't
bullshit.
Judge us for our non-mainstream.
We like movies that no one sees, that are commercial failures,
exactly,
and cost people their careers, lives, mortgages. Their kids can no longer go to private school.
Oh yeah,
that's the kind of shit we're into, and it's been a great year for that.
100%. To failure for 2021.
Absolutely, big year for failure. Go ahead. What's your number 10, my man?
Okay, so my number 10 is a little movie called The Spine of Night.
Okay.
Is this on your list, man? Or is this...
No, it is not. I do not know what this is.
Okay, cool. It's this...
Oh, wait a second. Maybe it sounds familiar, but I did not see this.
Okay, so it's this movie. I think I was texting you about it. It's basically came out at Fantastic Fest and a lot of the weirder Austin film festivals, but it's great because it's a throwback to Ralph Bashki shit and kind of especially what's it called, heavy metal. That type of rotoscoped animation stuff that was really big in the 70s and 80s.
Was it Fantastic Planet or something? Or what's the big...
so that was another big one from the 70s, but that wasn't quite rotoscoped. But it was also the same trippy animated, for heads kind of movies.
Right. Tarantino took acid and then watched it at the Cinema Dome or something.
Yeah, exactly. That and this is pretty much the same thing, but it's interesting because they're using this software. I'm pretty sure they're using the software that's kind of been... dispersed throughout the I've been seeing it more and more. I'm a video editor, so I kind of see certain things pop up in the industry, and in just in general looking on YouTube, there's this software called EBSynth, which is basically if you record someone in video form, you can trace every few frames, and then the computer will kind of fill in the rest of the frames, so you have a really smooth rotoscope. Well, really smooth rotoscope. I still think the style of animation can look rough sometimes and can look kind of ugly depending on how it's done. And and this movie, I will say it starts out kind of rough. I think that I had to take 2 attempts to watch this. The first time I tried watching it, I was tired and wasn't into it. And then the second time, I was much more awake, and I was like, oh, this is really great. But I will say the first... so this is basically a heavy metal type of anthology story about, a fantasy land. And it's... very thinly veiled drug references. Is basically about there's a mountain guarded by a warrior where a magic weed grows, and then one of the little flower petals from the weed falls to the earth, and it grows into a massive swamp, and the lady that's the swamp witch is in charge of this powerful weed she wears around her body. It's weird. It looks looks like she's wearing a scarf made of nugs. Like it's very clearly like this is a weed analogy or something.
It sounds like a Studio Ghibli type plot.
Kind of, but it's definitely not at all whimsical or happy. Like the thing I liked about this is like how they make very clear that this is a world that is cruel and punishing, and usually the evil people win, and people are stupid and die often, and their deaths are pathetic. Like there's this whole thing, like they tell like one of this. It's an anthology story, so they tell a few tales basically about this magic garb that kind of gets passed from a few people, and kind of the ramifications of this magic going into the earth and how it corrupts things. But like they even have this one story about how it's almost kind of reminiscent of like Greek legends where like the gods created man, but the gods hated man, so man tried to rise up and they hunted and killed all the gods. So it's basically like everything is cruel and terrible, but with it you have this really crazy trippy like laser disco 70s style art animation that on top of the rotoscope stuff, like as the movie progresses, there's some really interesting, just like hallucinatory, once again, like Pink Floyd, The Wall type of visuals, So it's cool. Like as a throwback, it is really interesting, and there's some famous people in it. Like I think Richard E. Grant and Lucy Lawless and Patton Oswalt make appearances and stuff like that. So
okay, the Patton Oswalt, I definitely saw the trailer for this because I definitely remember Patton Wall. I was like, is that Patton Oswalt? I remember seeing this. So yeah. It does look very cool. I remember that. I remember going like, Viking type stuff.
Yeah, it's like a lot of tits, a lot of nudity and gore and yeah, like to varying degrees of success. I don't think the animation style is always perfect, but they put a lot of work into it, and there's a pretty good story. Like I found myself actually kind of interested in the story and as it goes on, and basically it kind of goes on through the years. Like it spans over a big distance of time and stuff like that. So like any of that like Game of Thronesy type of stuff usually isn't my bag, but this is pretty cool. Nifty, weird little selection. So if that's your thing, I definitely recommend it.